All right. So I'm John Vecchio, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about the impact of COVID-19 on businesses and more specifically how they should respond to this crisis.
I'm Andrew Byrne. I'm a junior and I have a business administration major.
Jake. Um, I'm also a business administration major with a finance minor.
Could you turn your mic up a little bit, Jake?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So just a little overview. Basically, going to be talking about how companies need to find like a new approach to plan financially wise. A lot of the stuff that they have now really is pretty much useless with all this uncertainty that we have. A big thing they need to have is they need a new systematic approach, which will allow the CFO and finance team to quickly alert the company to options emerging as a result of the virus. Um, and the main thing in this article is the 5-step plan that they outline, starting with getting a clear view of the company's starting position, building a fact base and using it to develop a range of scenarios, align on a financial plan with the direction of travel, determine the best actions and moves, and then finally identify the trigger points that will allow the business to adjust and adapt forecasts and financial plans with ease and quickness.
Okay, so I assume you're going to go through these 5 steps.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
So you could go to the next slide.
I'm trying right now. It's going too far.
Yeah, you're good. So before we talk about that, just something that was important. These are a list of 5 industries and how severely they were impacted by the virus. The first 2 obviously are the commercial aerospace and air and travel. If you're doing Southwest, you know that they're going to have like a lot of cash flow problems due to their air traffic liability that they have to pay now. And then the bottom 3, oil and gas, automotive, and then the lastly, insurance carriers affected, but not, nothing crazy.
So everybody's impacted differently.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And then going into this a little bit more detail, for the commercial aerospace, their average stock price took a hit of 46. Some of the problems that they're facing is balance sheet resilience and high fixed costs leading to cash flow issues and uncertainty about long-term growth. Their estimated recovery time expected to be a year or more to recover from their supply chain shortages. So when you look at air and travel, very similarly, theirs was negative 44. And obviously they have a huge decrease in demand, 5 to 6 times more than that during 9/11. A lot of it's due to like the quarantine and also international travel bans. And then obviously the summer season where it's normally very busy is going to be hugely affected. Their recovery time for domestic travel, roughly 2 to 3 quarters. And then for long haul and international, much longer, 6+ quarters.
So they're each company is going to be impacted differently.
Mm-hmm.
And air travel is one that's really got the problem.
Yeah, the aerospace and travel are.
Sure.
Yeah.
Would you hop on a plane today?
I think I would, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you domestically or internationally? Would you go to London?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I think I would.
Sure, Jake.
Yeah, I would go to London. Depends on the country though.
Oh, okay. It's a little limitation, Andrew.
Yeah, I think it would depend on the country,
Okay. Joe.
If I had been going to London each summer for the past couple of years, I would definitely go to London, but I would never go on a plane as of like now. It's sitting in an enclosed place with people coughing. It's too paranoid with the pandemic. We don't know what's going on with that.
Okay. What do you think, if some of you seem that you'd be willing to just jump on a plane, what makes you different, do you think, than some of the other people that are predicting how long this is going to take to get back on a plane?
I don't know. I feel like a lot of people are, I don't know, just really worried about this, like almost too much. I don't know. I don't know. It just doesn't seem. I mean, it's bad, but I don't know. I'm not too worried, I guess you could say.
Okay. What might be another factor or two that may impact air travel?
Well, I guess whether it's for business or just,
What do you think has happened with business air travel?
well, that's probably definitely slowed down significantly.
What do you think the people learn from doing Zoom and meetings virtually?
That they can save money.
They can save money. Do they need to travel?
Probably
Yeah.
not.
Probably not. So that's going to take a while to come back. What might be another factor in all of this?
Uh, Consumers would probably just be a little more scared in
Okay.
coming years.
So they're scared, sure. What else might be around the consumer? How many people are unemployed?
A bunch.
Like 40 million people.
Yeah.
So 40 million people are unemployed. Do you think they're going to take an airline trip?
Nope, you can't afford it.
Right. Now you're seeing this. Okay, keep going.
Not even from like just them being scared, just from a financial standpoint.
Yeah.
They can't, you know. Okay. So starting off, this first step for them is to convene with a COVID-19 finance planning team supported by a range of cross-functional experts, such as in sales or supply chains. They want to work together with these people, like I said before, to establish a solid fact base that will tell a comprehensive story about the historical and current market and financial trends, as well as potential future indicators. And with that, a good indicator point could be the financial plan that they rolled out January of 2020. So moving on from that, they want to build a driver base model from revenue to cash, compare the latest trends and key operational drivers of the business prior to the pandemic with the key drivers of the business since the pandemic started. Specifically with this, they want to identify what changed, what new liquidity risks might have emerged, and how sensitive those drivers are to the uncertainties that are in the market.
Did you understand everything here?
More or less, yeah.
Yeah, why?
Well, I mean, it makes sense.
But why else?
I don't know.
What have you spent the past 5 weeks doing?
Oh, the application.
Yeah.
This,
Yeah, if you go through that, you've been doing every one of them things.
Right. Yeah, exactly. With the drivers too.
Right. Revenue to cash. You looked at cash flow. You looked at revenue. You looked at how costs relate.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. Huh. So you're right on task.
Yeah, pretty much.
And you understand it. Did you get it, Jake? You understand it?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it really relates to the projects we've been doing.
Andrew.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
All right. So step 2 is to build a fact base and use it to develop a range of scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
So with the facts in hand, the company should build 4 different models for each scenario: an optimistic, pessimistic, and a momentum case.
Okay.
A momentum case is most likely because sometimes companies don't focus on the big picture when setting business strategies and targets. So with that, like, executives like have overly optimistic views, so companies need opinions outside their own executives. And momentum case provides a rational forecast, so like there's no biased emotions for the company's financials. And when executives use a momentum case, typically they end up in engaged conversations about how investments, targets for growth, and cost reduction initiatives may complement one another to be successful. And each scenario should be looked at in 3 different ways. So like depth of decline, duration of decline, and the time required to ramp back up. And when looking at each scenario, you have to look at the company's starting point. It also depends on the industry to incorporate changes to cost structure. Like in the article, it said that like grocery stores due to the pandemic will implement non-structural changes because they experience a little loss in sales, while like a different company may experience like many losses in sales, and they just have to restructure. The financial planning team has to be conservative and incorporate stress tests and other financial ratios when making their models, and also include horizons in their forecasts. So after modeling, the financial team can have an idea where the company is liquidity wise, by having an understanding of the company's capital and capacity restraints.
What you just described as accounting 315, finance 315, analyzing financial statements. Let's just make sure we understand that. Since we started talking about airlines, what kind of assumption could you use for optimistic, pessimistic? What might you say if we're looking at it in the next year?
Optimistic is that like the coronavirus is probably going to fade away in near time. Maybe a pessimistic view is that maybe like the second wave is really detrimental. So like you might want to plan for that.
Okay. Now, do you think optimistic, what you described as optimistic, is realistic?
Probably not. Like,
okay. So you might, how would you better define that?
Should probably like plan in a most realistic scenario, for like the most realistic scenario.
Okay, so that COVID-19 doesn't go away, airlines learn to manage it, manage the risk. Okay. So what kind of metric could you use around that? Go back one screen. Yeah. How would you measure that? Are you doing an airline or are you doing Home Depot?
Yeah, I'm doing an airline.
Okay, so what would be an optimistic view of, what do you know about airlines today and their volume of passenger load?
So basically like most of the revenue comes from passenger ticket sales, like over 90%. So like,
what metric do we use around that?
Oh, like miles, like available seat miles.
You keep coming back to the drivers,
okay,
right?
So like they use like available seat miles, and then they find out like average like revenue that each passenger.
And when you divide that, you get what?
You get
load factor.
Load factor, yeah. Load factor is like the percentage of a full plane.
Right. So how could you define?
So like probably the percentage of the full plane will like it's like around like 80-ish% on average. So it'll probably go down by like half or something.
Okay, now you're getting it. Got it? Yeah.
Yeah, I got it.
So they're going to have less available miles.
Yeah, because there's going to be less flights.
Less flights, then you're going to have lower occupancy on the plane or load factor. Okay. So your assumptions would all be around those drivers that you spent a lot of time beating up.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
All right, next slide.
And you already looked at liquidity, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so step 3 is to like align a financial plan with direction of travel. So like after the financial team does their part, the executives have to decide on which direction to take. And this all depends on the level of disruption the company is facing. Like for example, the airline industry, like they're facing big disruption because no one's really flying. Also the financial team may want to look at the company's cash conversion approach in like a COVID-19 world and communicate it geographically, meaning to everyone involved in the company will know where the money will be spent within sales, marketing, etc. An emphasis has to be put on keeping the company's cash flow sustainable and focus on initiatives instead of results.
Okay.
Next slide. All right, so to continue this, direction of travel agreed upon, financial plan team must work with senior leadership to identify like a good set of initiatives and determine how to execute them, and then track their performance across multiple time horizons. And then like all the initiative ideas have to be looked at, and then based on financial planning, the leaders have to decide what to do.
How could the finance team screw this up?
Maybe they could have a overly optimistic view or maybe an overly pessimistic view.
Other thoughts on that one?
Maybe they just do the math wrong.
Keep going. They just did the math.
Yeah.
Did they bring in operations folks? Did they bring in sales folks?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's great that finance does it, but if they haven't connected it back to the operations or sales, it don't matter, right?
Yeah.
This is good. So a direction.
For step 4, be determining the best actions and moves. So companies should make decisions on what resources they want to cut down to make certain products due to like a drop in sales. Certain products have seen like radical drops in sales, and many companies have had to like decide whether or not they want to keep those. Companies have also converted some of their production lines so that they can keep producing or start producing personal protective equipment for the virus. Identifying the trigger points that will prompt the business to adapt and adjust. In times of crisis, companies have to monitor their liquidity and earnings. Financial planners and companies should identify their most relevant performance indicators such as cash, sales figures, and customer retention rates. For example, like a grocery store should pay attention to their inventory to avoid potential stock out situations so they don't like sell out like all their inventory. And companies should figure out what KPIs signal that they are moving out of like their crisis phase and back to normal.
What's KPI?
Key performance indicators.
Ah, okay. Do you have a key performance indicator for yourself?
I don't know. I didn't think about that. I'm not sure.
Huh.
I don't know.
Yeah, we probably should have them, shouldn't we?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I think you missed a slide, didn't you?
I don't think so.
Okay. Yep. Yep.
Okay.
All right. So, in summary, through the use of these new approaches, obviously new procedures will be established, and then moving forward, companies will be wise for them to use these measures in their everyday business once this pandemic comes to a close. For example, companies might want to shift towards shorter planning cycles, a more frequent review of KPIs, or the use of zero-based budgeting models. And then lastly, due to this pandemic and the introduction of vastly different planning models, we're going to see companies testing these models now. And if they're effective, then they're going to continue to use these models in the future. And then this will lead to a huge change in the way financial planning is done.
Okay. What could this mean to your future? How could this impact your future?
New jobs.
Right.
Right.
What about your jobs?
But there's going to be new ones created.
New ones created. Jake?
Maybe different types of jobs will be
Yeah.
more in demand.
Or how you do them?
Yeah.
Yeah, more people like working from home.
Okay.
Yeah, like 2 weeks ago, I helped move like this engineering company's like office supplies. Just like take it out, like because they decided to work from home.
Joe?
Just more remote, working from home, more social distancing, stuff like that. Definitely more digital focused and virtual focused work environment.
Okay. I think companies are going to spend more time focused on cash flow and cash flow cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing.
Right. And you know how to do it.
Yeah.
Think about who would have ever thought that the stuff you were studying a couple weeks ago is now going to be one of the most important tools in finance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good job. I did.